First of all, shout out to Payback. Payback been making a lot of good Call of Duty videos, so shout out to him.
On September 16th, 2023, World Series of Warzone kicked off, and the trios that qualified from around the world got their chance to compete to earn $100,000. And one of the favorites to win the entire thing was Biffle, Shifty, and Sage, who had been dominating online tournaments. A lot of people accused them of hacking because they were playing so well, but they came into the World Series.
They proved it on land.
Looking to prove people wrong.
They proved it on land.
Exactly what they did, dominating the entire tournament and beating second place by 75 points. So I think it's safe to say that they were easily.
It just happened. It just happened to be on the worst Warzone ever. Warzone 2. That was just the worst part about it.
And following this win, Shifty commented on the potential of him joining the CDL, and it sparked the endless debate about Warzone pros versus Call of Duty League pros. And even just a few weeks ago, Repulse was on a podcast with Hitch and talked about how Biffle, who also won the World Series of Warzone, had offers to join CDL teams. And then just as
Biffle could probably make the switch. He could probably make the switch, but like on a mid to low tier CDL team, because I feel like at that point they have nothing to lose. They just kind of want like star power or somebody that's good at Call of Duty. But like to say he can like just hop on like the ultras, the phases, the optics, like nah, bro.
It came out that no CDL teams were actually interested in Biffle, and the debate goes on and on about if Warzone pros could compete with the best of the best in the Call of Duty League. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit today and answer the question that has been asked since the beginning of Warzone: if the top Warzone players could compete in the CDL and vice versa. I think it just all comes down to like each Warzone pro and each Call of Duty like multiplayer CDL pro just like learning the game like that they don't play. So if CDL pros learn Warzone and if Warzone pros play CDL or like play like S&Ds, like SD, CMGs, whatever, 8, like I feel like if you give them enough time, they will learn how the game works. The answer is pretty obvious.
They're all good no matter what.
At the same time, there's some good opinions floating around. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. The CDL versus Warzone debate has been around since Warzone started, but it started becoming a bigger topic after Optic Scump got a chance to
he got the
World Series of Warzone
solo dolo
tournament, which had some of the top Warzone players at the time alongside
who missed. Oh, bro, like listen, I know people Verdansk had its ups and downs. It didn't have the best time, you know, like let's be honest, if you went downtown, you were getting sniped from some random building. All right, we all know this. But Warzone 1 was so good. I wish I was good at Warzone when Warzone 1 was out. I got good towards like the end of Warzone 1. That's what really sucked. I got good at Warzone towards the end of Warzone 1.
Creators that competed in a solo Warzone game for $100,000. So of course, if Scump got invited, he wasn't going to turn that opportunity down. But he hadn't played Warzone in months, yet he still hopped on and ended up having a very dominant performance on Verdansk, dropping 11 kills. And he had this crazy gunfight with Aiden to secure the victory and win $100,000.
Why did I get an ad? Skip.
Oh my god! Oh my god! And for many people,
that was crazy.
The debate right there, because Scump hadn't practiced for this tournament and won it just off of his natural skill and awareness, showing that CDL players were just steps ahead of everyone else when it comes to anything related to
it's kind of true a little bit
deeper than that. As I said at the beginning of the video, after Shifty, Biffle, and Sage won the World Series of Warzone, there have been talks about Shifty and Biffle being in the CDL, which raises new questions about whether or not some of the top Warzone players.
I don't think they'd want to come to the CDL either. Like, I don't know. Listen, I feel like being a competitive person, obviously it's like interesting, but I feel like nowadays, like at least having the option of being like a content creator and like doing Call of Duty, but having like tournaments from time to time, or like wagers if you're in like the multiplayer side, or tournaments if you're on the Warzone side. Like I'd rather just like be a content creator, because at the end of the day, like you can always be competitive and have like even like creative tournaments or just general like wagers when you're a content creator, but when you're competing, you have to give all of yourself to competing. So I think that's kind of like, it's a weird line where if you really are like that type of person where you want to compete on a day-to-day basis, and that's like everything to you, then sure, you can hit like a league, bro.
could become successful in the Call of Duty League if they dedicated the time and effort into it. And with all these questions about Warzone versus a CDL, there's two sides. If I were to give like head captains to both sides, on the Warzone side, it would be like Repulse and Aiden, because Aiden be trash talking on Twitter. And then on the opposite side, on the Call of Duty League side, I would say probably who
Draza.
like maybe like Zoomaa and Scump, because he won the World Series of Warzone. So
Oh,
have
wait,
both
captains?
sides of the argument of Warzone versus CDL. Who is better? What is easier to become the best at? And for the Warzone side of the argument, these are some takes from the Warzone community in regards to all the questions that we've been asking in this video. Repulse was on the Around the Bar podcast and said this.
Shout out Repulse.
The reason that like that the competitive COD is because comments hates on Shifty is because isn't it Shifty that say he could play in the CDL if he wanted to?
Yeah.
That's faded as
Think so?
yes, that is. Come on,
disagree.
you're insane.
It's a bit faded.
You're
It's a bit
insane.
faded. I think both sides is faded. You have to learn the game no matter what.
Now we fast forward and multiplayer, and not in a bad way, but isn't as popular anymore, right? Warzone
Yeah.
has kind of taken that, like everybody, Warzone is that next thing. So it's like, okay, the people that are goated, these insane superstars, where are they gonna go? Where are you gonna find them now? And a lot of these guys, the people that nobody knows about, are Warzone because they don't know any better. They're going to play Warzone. It's a free-to-play game. It's more
Yeah.
accessible, and they're really good at the game. But now you teach them how to play other things, and they're gonna fry. Big reason of why I think Diaz, yeah, he played S&D growing. He played a little bit of variant. Like, I genuinely believe you put that man in the CDL, and Crowder has said he can do it. Like a lot of people. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not gonna leak anything, but he got offered multiple spots in the CDL. Like,
He can't talk about it, and he said no.
He said no. He said no. Again,
Yeah, he would get fried.
Shoot, I think Diaz would like need like a year or two to like get adjusted. Maybe probably like a year. But once he gets adjusted, like he'll definitely be like solid. But it's just so much fast paced when it comes to multiplayer. And you gotta like really lock in on 3 different modes. With like Warzone, you really gotta lock in with it's literally one mode. It's one mode.
right?
And if you want to get deeper into the Warzone community, you will also find takes like this.
Do you think Biffle could do pretty well in the CDL?
Of course he could.
Hey,
a lot of CDL
yeah.
players always think they can't. I constantly see that argument. CDL players are always like maybe Biffle could compete, but he wouldn't even be close to a top player in the league. And it's like they think he doesn't have the
Oh my
skill
goodness.
set. I'm sorry. I'll never agree with them, and I'll never fully understand their reasoning. But I think being the best Warzone player in the world is way more skillful than being the best CDL player in the world. Maybe
I
that's a hot
agree.
take for CDL players, but they have
It's not like it's not a terrible take, but again, with like multiplayer, you have to adjust to like you have to adjust to potential spawns, metas changing, multiplayer maps, making sure you know the modes and how they play on that map. Everything combined. What's good, Bender? You just gotta adjust to so much when you're a CDL pro versus a Warzone pro. Actually, no, Warzone pros only have to adjust like meta wise, but like, what are you gonna do? Adjust spawns? Like, you can't adjust spawns. You feel me? But you gotta have a lot of information for a Warzone pro.
act like there's so much strategy. You sit there and hold an angle and wait for some guy to run around the corner. How do you think Biffle would not be able to do that? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
That's kind of
exactly.
And
OD.
the main argument
That's
is
kind of
Call
OD.
Duty-
How do we feel about Warzone pros playing in CDL or like competitive multiplayer? Who do y'all think is better? Do y'all like Warzone pros or Call of Duty pros?
Duty League pros transition to Warzone.
A
It would be-
GTRP? I'm gonna do GTRP after this video. So like in Warzone, I don't know. I think really whoever can fry can fry. You just got to learn the other side of it. That's really what it is. But now I'm gonna get into RP like in like after this video. So like what? Like 5 minutes? I'm gonna get into RP.
be much more difficult than if, say, Biffle were to transfer over to the Call of Duty League. Essentially, becoming a Warzone pro is more difficult than being in the Call of Duty League. I will say that
No, absolutely not. Actually, I don't know, because they're both kind of hard. Like, obviously, if you can get to challengers, there's more of like a pipeline to get to the pros. Because like you go through maybe like college league or college COD, challenges pick you up, you go do good into challengers, you win, then obviously you get into the CDL. But even then, it's like there's limited spots. With Warzone, it's like you're competing against the whole world theoretically, but it's not. It's like it's sort of like open to everybody. You just gotta be frying.
Take for the Warzone side of the argument. On the other side of the debate is the Call of Duty League side. There were some very heated opinions on the CDL side.
Podcasts should require an IQ test before you're allowed to start one. Look what you've done to get together. Worst Call of Duty take of all time. Playing pubs isn't the same as 48 greatest players in the game. That's okay. That's facts. It's probably the best point so far. Because like, especially with like what's the way I can say it? The fact of the matter is like with Warzone, like especially competitive Warzone, like what we see in World Series, it's like very, very slow pace. I think the biggest argument you can give to Warzone pros is like it's sort of similar to Apex. Like Apex pros like are just so meticulous about their mechanics and like aiming, awareness, stuff like that. COD multiplayer pros have that, but I think they're more meticulous about certain things, especially because like you're not like, especially with the multiplayer map, you're not aiming like super duper far. With the Warzone map, like especially if you have like a sniper and you're trying to cross map somebody, like it just is what it is.
But here are some takes from the Call of Duty League. Zoomaa tweeted out, the best COD players in the world are in the CDL. There are only a select few of Warzone players that can make the switch if they dedicated their time to the CDL, but it won't be easy. Also,
best take, literally the best take. It's literally the best take, and that sort of goes for CDL pros trying to get to Warzone.
The 1v1 arguments,
it's literally the best take.
Very entertaining to watch. Awareness, comms, positioning, routes, teamwork, timings. There's a lot that goes into being a pro COD player. Then
Facts.
Also on the Call of Duty League side of the argument, Tim the Tatman actually commented on this.
There is a legitimate thing going on in the community, in the Call of Duty community, where Warzone streamers and players are talking to CDL pros. And at the end of the day, there are some very good Warzone players. Extremely good Warzone players, man. And there's also extremely good Call of Duty CDL pros. One thing that I got to give a point to the CDL on and CDL pros, this man Scumpy came off of not playing Warzone, hopped in and won the $100,000 solo thing. If someone made me choose, right, who's better, Warzone professionals or Call of Duty professionals, right, CDL pros, I'm picking CDL because that's what the fucking core of Warzone is Call of Duty. These CDL guys have been doing this for so long.
That's true,
for this
too.
side of the argument, becoming a Call of Duty League pro is much more difficult than becoming a top Warzone player. And the fact that this is an argument is kind of insane because of how talented and how difficult it is to make it into the Call of Duty League. So now looking at both sides of
It's
the
very
argument,
hard.
there are some very interesting takes, in my opinion, on the entire thing. I think it's hard to compare Warzone and the Call of Duty League just because of how different they are, but it's no doubt that being a pro in both the COD League and being at the top of Warzone.
Facts. Both are cracked. Both are cracked.
Extremely difficult, and it takes a ton of skill to do that. I think becoming a top Warzone player is much more accessible than being in the Call of Duty League.
Yes.
I mean, there's even some extremely talented Challengers players that aren't even in the Call of Duty League. We need to get out a temp in the COD League ASAP. But at the end of the day, I do have to agree with the Call of Duty League side. CDL players are just on a whole nother level. That's not to say that Warzone players aren't extremely skilled, but I think the Call of Duty League has some of the best. And if they dedicated their time, they could transition to Warzone successfully. But like I said, I'm not taking anything away from the Warzone players.
That's what I'm saying.
The CDL is genuinely harder to get into. But I do think that there are a few exceptions in the Warzone community of players that could make the transition to the Call of Duty League if they...
For sure, Biffle, maybe Shifty. I don't know. It really just depends whoever played, like... I feel like if you played, like, S&D heavy growing up, you can learn, like, variety. You can learn respawns. It might be a little bit difficult, but, like, I feel like if you, like, know S&D, like, a lot of the core CDL pros were, like, S&D kids, and then they, like, get into variety, or like they just naturally learn it. I feel like if you know S&D to a T as a Warzone pro, and you can like take the time to learn variety and respawns, then you can maybe make the switch.
Invested the time and energy to do so. There's also players that did play professional Call of Duty that made the transition to being a pro Warzone player. For instance, Tommy and Rated were both professional Call of Duty players at one point. I think players like Biffle and Shifty could actually make it into the league and be successful, because it is not easy to be as consistent as they are in Warzone, and that's just a whole nother level of talent. So I do think that there are a few exceptions in the Warzone community that could make the switch to the Call of Duty League. But when it comes to the heart of the debate, the only way that it could truly ever be settled is if there was a way to see the top Warzone players go at it with some of these CDL pros in some sort of series. I'm not sure what that would look like, but if there was a way to set that up, I'm with Mbos on this one. I would
be crazy.
Love to watch it. I've been seeing this debate floating around really ever since Scump won the solo YOLO tournament. Even up until this morning, I've seen people tweeting about it. So I thought it would be interesting to cover some of the takes, and I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say down below. Let me know some of your thoughts on the
Warzone. Is this a Sheikah? This is a Sheikah, right?
But with that said, if you guys enjoyed this video, I made another video similar to this one about why Warzone don't get.
Now that'd be payback, but holy, I don't know. I'd say like CDL pros got it, but honestly, both are pretty good, so it really don't even matter.